Jamaica recorded 65 new COVID-19 cases and 2 virus-related deaths yesterday, according to the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Now, this increases the total of confirmed cases on the island since the outbreak to 50,913 and confirmed deaths to 1,136. The new cases comprise 39 females and 26 males, ranging in age from 6 months to 96 years. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, 19 of the cases were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew. 11 cases were recorded in St. James. 9 cases were recorded in Hanover. 7 in St. Anne. 6 cases in St. Catherine. 5 cases were recorded in Westmoreland. 3 cases were recorded each in Manchester and St. Elizabeth, and 1 case was recorded each in Portland, St. Mary and St. Thomas. Meanwhile, a 91-year-old male from Kingston and St. Andrew and a 59-year-old male from Westmoreland are the virus's latest victims. Another death was also reported as under investigation. The ministry further reported 1,035 new recoveries, which takes the total of recovered persons now to 43,157. There are currently 6,295 active cases of the virus on the island. In other news tonight, speaking at the opening of the Mount Salem police station yesterday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness warned that as a new surge and strains in COVID-19 infections emerge in the U.S. and the Central Caribbean, we here in Jamaica should strictly observe all protocols put in place by the government, as the vaccination of the population is at only 10%.
Central and South America in the United States, that there is a new surge of infections caused in part by the reopening, but also by a new strain. Now, Jamaica has to be very careful. Unlike Europe and North America, where you have vaccination levels 40% and more, and they are still having a surge, we are only approximately about 10% of our population having 1 dose of the vaccine, about 4 to 5% fully vaccinated. We must be careful. Some persons want to live in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic, and some persons don't want to die because of the COVID-19 pandemic. How do you resolve those two things? There are some people who just want to go to party. They want to move about. They want to go to the beaches. They want to have fun. They can't understand why are we being restricted for so long. And there are others who see the potential danger to health and the economy, particularly to the vulnerable and to the frontline workers who have to care for the ill and elderly in our hospitals, which are not at the standards that we would want them to be. The only solution to this is personal responsibility.
He said on Monday the Cabinet received a report from the Health Ministry showing a slight uptick in the infection and positivity rates as well as hospitalizations.
Be assured that we are watching the figures keenly. I received a report from the Ministry of Health at Cabinet on Monday. The Chief Medical Officer pointed out that there is a slight uptick in the infection, the positivity rates, and in hospitalizations. We are watching it very carefully. I have also put out my own feelers, quite separate and apart from the surveillance of the Ministry of Health and the surveillance from ODPEM, to see what is happening in the parties, the nightclubs, the restaurants, and all the gathering spots. And we are noticing, particularly amongst our young people, those coming back from college overseas or those who are on summer break, those who have been cooped up inside for a long time, that they are not observing the protocols. Of course, it is hard to party and wear masks, but you will note that every time I speak in public, regardless of the restriction on breathing, I wear my mask. I'm saying to every single Jamaican, you will decide how this pandemic ends.
In the meantime, the upgraded Mount Salem Police Station, which was built by the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, JSIF, at a cost of approximately $47.6 million, with funding from the European Union, EU, was officially opened yesterday. Now it will serve 9,050 residents in Mount Salem and its surrounding areas. Here is Colleen May with more on this story.
The upgraded Mount Salem Police Station, constructed as part of the build phase of the Zone of Special Operations (ZOZO), now in place in the community, was officially handed over yesterday. Omar Sweeney, Deputy Chairperson of the Zone of Special Operations (ZOZO) and Managing Director at the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, pointed out that the facility will have the ability to provide a more customer-centered approach to the community's need for support.
We were also supported by a critical partner here today with us, the European Union, and the European Union came on board to support the redevelopment of the Mount Salem Police Station. This police station, an investment of $47.6 million, would see to, I don't have to describe it very much, but it's quite a modern state-of-the-art facility, right? This station that you will open today will have the ability to provide a more customer-centric approach to residents. So it's not just for the aspects of policing. It is also to ensure that if there is a minor dispute or you just need some advice, that here is a resource that is here for you in the community of Mount Salem.
Mr. Sweeney explained that more than 4,500 residents of Mount Salem benefited from social interventions and investments.
Mount Salem was the first zone established close to 4 years ago in 2017. We set out on a task here in Mount Salem to make this the model of the Zone of Special Operations. And since 2017, more than 4,500 residents have benefited from social interventions and social investment programs here in Mount Salem. We have invested close to $320 million in aspects to improve the community, such as zinc fence removal, road rehabilitation, regularization of the water supply, youth engagement and skills training programs, amongst many other interventions that would have occurred, the community fairs, the sports programs, and building the overall cohesion of the community and the residents here. When we embarked on the Zone of Special Operations, an approach that would combine the police and the security, enhanced security measures, along with the social development and investment in the community, we wanted to see a model that would ensure the long-term sustainability of these types of investment. That's one. We also wanted to make sure that state actors, government state actors, that could work within this community and bring government services to Mount Salem and its environs in a way that would be sustained and also build the capacity of the residents to be able to call upon the state or the government agencies whenever deficits would exist.
Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson pointed to the success of the quick response team based in St. James.
We had to develop capacity within St. James to rapidly respond to the circumstances that we were seeing in downtown Montego Bay and other places. So we created in St. James, and this was led largely by Superintendent Ellis and his team, the St. James team, to develop the quick response, bike-based teams that could respond very quickly to anything that was happening in downtown Montego Bay. And what we have seen subsequent to them operating in downtown St. James is the number of violent incidents drop off dramatically since this team has been operating there within downtown St. James. It's the same team that carried homework to 300 students across the hills of St. James because they didn't have internet. So we had to get homework to them and back to the school. And these same guys who are doing the hardest form of policing, being willing to take on the most dangerous of bad guys, was also the same team that could carry homework. And that is representative of the police force and police officers that we're talking about.
Major General Anderson also announced plans to establish a specialized police unit for specially trained officers to respond to violent crimes in St. James.
In terms of the security around St. James and in the western end. And that is, there is a plan, I won't say there was a plan, there is a plan to create a specialized operations west. That was early on, that was part of the plan. It got interrupted a bit because of COVID, but that has to come back on board, on the table again. It is a process of getting perhaps 200, 250 specially trained police officers, similar to what is in Kingston, similar to what persons saw probably on social media at Oaklands the other day, or SWAT teams, etc. Here in St. James, that can respond very rapidly to evolving, emerging situations or ongoing situations, and locating them up in Montego Hills, right in the middle of the problem. But the design and scope of that is a design that allows for shared facilities with the community and creating a safe space for the community to operate with the police in that space.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness, meanwhile, said the construction of the police station within 8 months is a sign of improvement in the speed of public sector.
It is scarcely a common occurrence that we see government buildings being erected in under 8 months. No matter how small they are, they find some reason to drag it out. So that we could have done this is a sign of improvement in the speed of public sector. I am certain, Ambassador Van Steen, that you are satisfied that the resources provided to support this from the European Union was wisely spent and it was efficiently used. And regardless, Ambassador, of whatever we feel about past historical issues, we must never allow those issues to in any way compromise the efficiency of our public bureaucracy. We must never waste anything, whether it is coming from a gift, whether we believe that we deserve it and it is repayment, or whatever other views you have about it. Whenever we have money, whether it is our taxpayers' money or other persons' money, we must spend it efficiently without any form of corruption or wastage. And I believe that we can say that we have done this with this project.
The police station has private interview rooms and other amenities such as an armory, waiting areas, public restrooms and parking. Reporting from Mello TV News, I'm Colleen May.
Thank you, Colleen. And we go now to news from St. Catherine, where the Spanish Town Police are investigating the circumstances surrounding an accident that occurred on the Old Harbour Main Road yesterday, which claimed the lives of 2 young men. Deceased are 20-year-old farmer Javoy Palomino and 22-year-old customer service agent Mikhail Reed, both of Old Harbour addresses. Reports coming into our news center are that at approximately 8:50 a.m., a Mazda motor car and a Yang Yang motorcycle were traveling along the Old Harbor Main Road in an easterly direction heading towards Spanish Town with the Mazda motor car ahead. Now, upon reaching a section of the roadway, the driver of the motorcycle allegedly lost control and collided with the Mazda motor car, then into a motor truck traveling in the opposite direction. The police say both the driver of the motorcycle and its pillion were taken to the hospital, where they were both pronounced dead. Continuing with the news tonight, 2 men who were wanted for a double murder on Spanish Town Road in Kingston 11 on March 17 of this year were nabbed in Hampstead St. Mary on Monday. The men were wanted by the Major Investigation Division MID following the shooting deaths of 36-year-old Richard Williams, otherwise called Tuppy, a tire repairman of Spanish Town Road, Kingston 11, and 42-year-old Kido Guya, a teacher of Deanery Road, Kingston 3. Williams and Guya were at a tire shop when they were pounced upon by men traveling in a Honda Stream motor car who opened gunfire, hitting them. The police were alerted and they were taken to the hospital, where they were pronounced dead. The men were picked up at a house in St. Mary during an operation led by the Area 2 Fugitive Apprehension Team. They were subsequently transferred to the MID, where murder charges will be laid against them. Here is Superintendent David White speaking on the success of the Fugitive Apprehension Team in the Area 2 Police Division.
Here at Area 2, we have a dynamic fugitive apprehension team. That team is a team that lead operations throughout Area 2 in the apprehension of wanted persons in Area 2 or where they're hiding out in Area 2 from other division. Most recently, they captured 2 criminals out of Kingston. One was wanted for a double murder. The other was wanted for a shooting. We continue to build their capacity as they continue to deliver.
Meanwhile, citizens are being reminded that it is a criminal offense to harbor or create a safe haven for criminals. Continuing with the news tonight, a 48-hour curfew has been imposed in sections of Savannah-Lamar in the Westmoreland Division. The curfew began at 6 p.m. yesterday, July 14, and will remain in effect until 6 p.m. tomorrow, July 16. The boundaries of the curfew are as follows. North from the intersection of Ricketts Avenue and Rose Street, along Rose Street to the intersection of Seagree and Hudson Streets, east from the intersection of Seagree Street and Hudson Street, along Hudson Street to the intersection of Russia Square, south from the intersection of Russia Square along Cook Street to the intersection of Cook Street and Great George Street, west from the intersection of Cook Street and Great George Street along Great George Street to the intersection of Ricketts Avenue and Rose Street. Now, during the hours of the curfew, all persons within the boundaries are required to remain within their premises unless otherwise authorized in writing by the ground commander. Also, in sections of Canaan Heights in the Clarendon Division, a 48-hour curfew has been imposed. The curfew began at 6 p.m. yesterday, July 14, and will remain in effect until 6 p.m. tomorrow, July 16. The boundaries of the curfew are as follows. North along an imaginary line approximately 400 meters from the gully bank at the western boundary to the river bank at the eastern boundary. East along an imaginary line approximately 1,200 meters from the northern boundary to the Billy Shaguri Road at the southern boundary. South along the Billy Shaguri Road from the entrance of the Canaan Heights community to the western boundary. Then west along an imaginary line approximately 1,100 meters from the Billy Shaguri Road at the southern boundary to the gully bank at the northern boundary. Now, during the hours of the curfew, all persons within the boundaries are required to remain within their premises unless otherwise authorized in writing by the ground commander. And those are some of the stories making news. We will return with other stories, as Mayor of Kingston Delroy Williams has indicated that the drain cleaning program for the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season has commenced in several communities across the municipality. And Prime Minister Andrew Holness yesterday visited the community of Quarry in St. James to hand over the keys to a new home under the government's new social housing program. But first, we'll go to a break and then join Christopher Scott with the very latest in sports.